What is up, peoples? So today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Bullet with Butterfly Wings by Smashing Pumpkins on guitar. I'm going to be going over rhythm guitar, lead guitar, and bass. So there's going to be chapters linked down in the description so you can skip to whatever section you want to learn. But without further ado, let's get into it. So for this song, you're going to want to have your guitar tuned to half step. So that means your guitar is going to be tuned with the E string to D sharp. A string is going to be tuned to G sharp. D string is going to be tuned to C sharp, and so forth. It should sound like this. Another thing to note is that I'm also using my Strat for this song, simply because it has the single coil pickups that I kind of think have a better sound for this song. So let's get started with rhythm guitar. So the main riff to the verse is going to sound something like this. So to play this, basically what it is, you're going to hold down this B power chord on the A, D, and G strings. So it's going to be 2nd fret on the A and 4th fret on the D and G. So basically when you play this riff, you're going to always keep your ring finger and your pinky on the D and G strings on this 4th fret. And you're going to be pretty much consistently strumming throughout this. While you're holding down that, what you're going to do is play that kind of iconic riff that makes the song. It sounds kind of like... So it's going to be the 2nd fret on the A string, then open A string, and back to 2nd fret. Then you have 3rd fret E string, open E string, and back to open A string, then back to 2nd fret. So it's going to sound like this. Now you put the 2 other notes on top of it, and what you kind of want to do to get the sort of sound is you want to pick pretty aggressive on the bottom note, but then kind of lighten up as you scrape the top 2 strings. Also, when you're playing the notes on the E string, you're going to want to mute out the A string with your pointer finger. You can kind of just hold it lightly over the 2nd fret, just barely enough to mute out the sound and not enough so that it's actually playing the note. So I'm going to play it a little slower at about 75 beats per minute, and try your best to just play along with it. If you need to go back and review anything, that's okay. Now I'm going to demonstrate it to you a little faster at around 100 beats per minute. So the next riff that we're going to go over is going to be the pre-chorus riff. Now this tends to trip a lot of people up because the riff itself actually starts 2 measures before the pre-chorus actually starts. It's basically going to be the same idea as the main riff, except instead of... you're going to have... it's going to be 2nd fret A string, open E string, 3rd fret E string, open A string. Now the final time you play this before you go into the chorus, it's going to change up. Instead of... you're just going to go straight to the 3rd fret of the E string. So it's going to sound like... Then you'll go right into an A power chord. You can flip on your distortion if you have a distortion pedal, and that'll bring you right into the chorus. So once again, I'll play you that a little bit slower, and then I'll play you that a little bit faster. This is going to be 75 beats per minute here. So just remember the last time around it changes up to that. Now here's it played a little faster at 100 beats per minute. So now that brings us into the chorus. So at this point there's going to be two subtly different rhythm guitar parts, one panned out to the left and the other panned out to the right. So I'm going to show you both of them, and they're pretty similar. There's only very subtle differences. So this is going to start out kind of like a standard pop progression. It's going to start out with a B power chord, moving to a G, moving to a D, and moving to an A. And these are all relative, so technically they're a half step down corresponding to how the guitar is tuned, but I'm just going to say them as if it was tuned to standard. So you have that progression. So now there's an extra measure kind of thrown into the middle of this mix to kind of give it a bit of a chaotic feel. That's essentially going to be going an E power chord up here to a G down here. Now to get the kind of raw sound that they were going for in this song, I personally take my fingers off the strings an eighth note before the chord change and just let them play out kind of like that between chords, so that should sound like. They also slide down from this E power chord when they go into that G. So that's going to be the main rhythm part. The other part is basically going to be the same thing, except when you get to the last G chord after the E, you're just going to play this top note on the D string. You can put a little bit of vibrato on it too. You can even play like a pinch harmonic. I think I accidentally threw one of those in my cover and I decided it sounded cool, so I just left it. It's basically going to play that progression 4 times, and on the last time when you get to that, what you're going to do is play an F sharp power chord, and then you're going to just take your pointer finger off and play the open E under it, then put it back on like that, and then move up to an A. That's what the main rhythm guitar part plays. What the other one does is going to be pretty much the same thing, except it's only playing the notes on the open string. So it's going to be that same 2, open 2, and then you're going to go up to 5th fret on E string, and gradually bend up to a half step. So let's put that all together slowly at around 75 beats per minute again. Now if you're going to play the other part, that's also going to sound like this. Now I'll play each part for you a little bit faster as well. So here's part 1. Part 2. Now after that, you're gonna basically go straight back into the main riff. In terms of rhythm guitar, the second verse and chorus aren't really any different from the first one, so it's gonna be basically just the same thing played over again. The only difference is gonna be at the end of the second chorus. On the third time around, instead of playing the, you're actually gonna go straight into a different section, so it's gonna sound kind of like this. So this is where we're adding in a little accidental note that doesn't actually belong in the key. So what it's going to be is 4th fret on the E string, 2nd fret, back to 4th fret, and then play a B power chord. Then you're going to basically move that riff down 2 frets, so it's going to sound like... So putting that all together, that's going to sound like this. So picking that up to 100 beats per minute, it's going to sound kind of like this. So the next section is going to be the bridge. In terms of rhythm guitar, this is going to be very similar to the ending of the chorus, just repeated. The only difference is going to be instead of playing the E power chord up here, you're going to play it down here. So it's going to sound like this. And you can add a few extra strums in there too if you want, so it should sound a little more like... Now at the very end of the bridge, both guitars are just going to play out an F sharp. And you'll play that for 2 measures. The only difference between the 2 guitars is one guitar is going to be playing it as a power chord, and the other guitar is just going to play the bottom note with lots of vibrato over it. So let's play that slowly. So up at 100 beats per minute, part 1 sounds like this. notice when I played that I alternated between this A chord and this one. It doesn't really matter which one you do. It's really up to personal preference. So part 2 is going to sound like this. So at this point, this is going to be the trickiest part of the song, I would say. The distorted guitar's cut out, and then we're just left with one regular clean guitar. And that part kind of sounds like this. Okay, so breaking that down, what it's basically going to be, it's mirroring the chords that are played in the regular chorus, but they're going to be more arpeggiated and there's going to be a few extra notes thrown in. So it starts off with this B power chord, and you're going to play all 3 notes descending down the strings like so. So then you take your finger off the G string and play that open. And as you do that, you're going to transition into this kind of G chord. All you need to do is put your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string and your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And also have your pointer finger ready to hold down the 2nd fret of the G string, because there's going to be a bit of a note change into the next chord. You play the E, the G, and the B string. So then you go back down to the G, and this is where you're going to put your pointer finger on the 2nd fret. So it's going to sound kind of like... So at this point you can take your middle finger off the E string. You're just going to play an arpeggiated D power chord, like so. You're going to move to the open G string. Then we have this kind of A power chord with a 9th over the top of it. So how I would play this is put your pointer finger on the 2nd fret of the D string and your pinky on the 4th fret of the G string. And then after that you're going to play the open G string. So it's going to sound like... So the next chord is going to be basically an E, but you aren't going to move your fingers at all because it's actually basically the same thing as the A chord. So what you can do is mute out the A string with your middle finger and play the E string instead. So it's going to sound like... So I'm playing the open E string, the D string, and the G string. The next chord is going to be slightly different. You're going to put your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, and at the same time use that to mute out the A string. And you're going to also take your pointer finger off of the D string. So it's just going to ring out open, like this. And then at the very end, you're just going to play the open G string. So it's going to sound like... So that's a bit of a lot to take in. If you feel the need to go back and review anything again, don't be afraid to rewind the video before moving on. Let's play this really slowly at 60 beats per minute. So at that point, you're gonna, instead of playing the E and the G chords, you're actually just gonna play those right back as those regular power chords. So it's gonna sound like... So let's play that whole section a little faster at about 100 beats per minute. So then obviously if you're playing the second rhythm part, you're gonna, instead of playing the whole G power chord, you're just gonna play that. Alright, so we're moving into the final section of the song, and this is pretty much the outro. So this is the section where the rhythm guitar kind of moves non-stop. So it's gonna be pretty much the same chords as the chorus with a couple subtle differences. I would start by playing the B chord up here as opposed to down here, because you're gonna actually throw an A chord between the B and the G, so it's gonna sound like. So then you play your regular old D and A, but then on the last 8th note before the transition back to the B, you're actually gonna throw in this B flat chord between the two, which is gonna be starting on the 6th fret of the E string. So it's gonna sound like this. So that section is going to repeat 12 times, and at the end of the 12th repetition, instead of playing the transitioning back to the B, you're going to actually play that E slide down part from the chorus earlier, and then you go right back down into an F sharp chord and slide off like that. I won't play the whole thing that slow because then we're just going to be here forever. Let's try that section at full speed, going all the way through to the end. I find it helps to actually kind of sing along with the song in your head to this part, because it helps you kind of keep track of where you are. And obviously at the very end, the main guitar part is going to go, whereas the other one is going to go, and then they both just play that F sharp slide off into. Alright, so that's the rhythm guitar part pretty much wrapped up. Feel free to refer back to this video if you get stuck, but let's move on to the lead guitar part. Alright, so moving on to lead guitar. I would recommend, if you're learning the lead part, to go back and also learn the rhythm part. It'll definitely benefit you to learn that part so that you have a better reference point of where you are. And if you happen to be playing it with like your band, say for example, you're probably going to want to cover the rhythm part when the lead isn't doing anything. So there's pretty much 4 main parts that you're going to be playing. You have a part that starts in the middle of the second verse. You have the solo. You have a counter melody over the dropout section. And you have a little bit in the outro as well. So this first section comes in right around the middle of the second verse. It comes in exactly 1 beat after the line, "What do you want?" finishes. So it's going to sound kind of like, "What do you want?" So you'll play that line 3 times, and then you'll move to just playing 8th notes on the 4th fret of the G string, like so. You can put a little vibrato on it too, just to add a little bit of that sound. So what this is going to be, it's going to be 14th fret on the G, to 12th fret, 11th fret. Then you're going to hammer on and pull off between the 11th and 12th fret like so. Then you play 12th fret on the D string. And then 14th fret on the A. This is also going to be a fairly syncopated rhythm, so it's going to sound kind of like 1, 2, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So let's play that together with the metronome. I'll start it off slowly, similarly to the rhythm guitar, and then we'll do it a little bit faster. So a couple important things to note. So the next repetition of that line pretty much starts immediately upon the finish of the last one. And as soon as you play it the third time around, you have to go kind of quick and go from here to here to play that sort of. And so you'll play that note pretty much until the rhythm guitar plays its A chord, and that'll bring us into the chorus. Alright, let's try that at 100 beats per minute. Again, hearing the vocal part can help you keep better track of where you are. So if you aren't playing with a band, I would definitely recommend trying to hear that part in your head so you know where you are. So the next part is going to be the solo. So basically every note you play during this solo is going to start on the end of 3. So it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So basically what it's going to start off with is you're going to slide up to the 12th fret of the B string. You can add a little vibrato too. Then the next note is going to be a slide up to the 13th fret of the G string. Then you're going to slide back up to the B. So then next you're going to play the 14th fret of the B. You're going to bend up a half step and then just slide upwards. So it's going to sound like this. So that repeats one more time. The only difference the second time around is you're actually going to do a whole step bend on that 14th fret. This solo has so few notes that I think 100 beats per minute is a good place to start with this. If you need to slow down the video though to help you out with it, that's fine. So the next part is going to be over the dropout section, and it's pretty similar to the part we played over the second verse, with only one little change toward the end. So in the rhythm guitar part, they play this arpeggiated thing, and the vocals just obviously sing blah 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 rat in a cage. So after the second repetition of that, you come in on beat 1, so it's going to basically sound like this. So it's going to be that same 14, 12, 11, 12. But then instead of playing the, you're going to play this slide from the 7th fret of the G up to the 9th. So it's going to sound like this. So putting that all together, it's going to kind of sound like 1, 2, and 4, and 2, and 4, 1, 2, and 4. So it's only going to play that part once, and then the second time around, it's just going to play this. And then the distorted rhythm guitar comes in, basically transitioning you back into the outro. So let's play that part together. So the next and final part is going to be basically the outro. So for this particular section, you're going to probably want to have a wah pedal if you have one, but if not, that's fine. So basically the main melody of it goes... So that's basically just me transitioning back and forth between the 4th and 2nd fret of the G string. And also bending on the 4th fret. And there's a bit of a pull off from the 4th fret to the 2nd at the end. I'll demonstrate to you how that's played. So there's basically 3 sections of this outro. The first one is Despite All My Rage, I Am Still Just a Rat. The second one, which is the one where this part comes in, is Tell Me I'm the Only One, Tell Me This, blah blah blah. So you're gonna basically play that throughout the duration of the Tell Me I'm the Only One section. So then when you get to the I Still Believe That I Cannot Be Saved section, you're basically gonna take that same shape, but move it up an octave. Instead of the 2nd and 4th fret, it's going to be up at the 14th and 16th frets. So it's going to play that pattern twice up here. And then it's going to move to something a little different, a little bit more of a conclusion sort of statement. So there's a pretty distinct pattern for the first part of this section, which is going to be basically pick, hammer on pick. So it's kind of going to sound like... So on the 14th fret, you're going to hammer on to the 16th fret. And then you're going to pull off to the 14th again. Then slide down to the 12th, then down to the 11th, hammer on back to the 12th, pull off to the 11th, slide down to the 9th, and then finally slide down to the 7th. So that's going to sound like this. So then next you're going to play this B on the D string. So it's going to be the 9th fret. So then you're going to play 7th fret G. So then you're going to hammer on to 9th fret. And then play 7th fret again. And then back down to the 9th of the D. So that's going to sound like this. So you play that twice and then it's going to change up. So then you move to the 6th fret of the G. And you're going to be hammering on to the 7th fret. And coming back to the 6th, then you play 9, 7 on the D string. So it's going to sound like this. So then finally you're going to play 10th fret B string, bending up a whole step and releasing. So then you're going to move down to 8th fret of the B, then play 9th fret on the G, and then move up to the 11th of the G. So that all together is going to sound like... So finally, let's put it all together and play this whole outro section. So that's a lot to take in. Feel free to go back and rewind the video as many times as you want, because that takes a little while to learn. Took a little while for me to learn. And there are some parts that are harder to hear, so if you listen to the song and you hear a different note than I'm playing, I could be wrong. So feel free to let me know down below in the comments. But let's try and play this again at 100 beats per minute. So that's the lead part pretty much wrapped up. Let's move on to bass. Alright, so here we are with bass. I would definitely recommend, similar to lead guitar, I would recommend you also go through and review the rhythm guitar parts, as there's a lot of similarities between that and the bass. The only difference is mostly going to be a few accidental notes here and there, and also the fact that the bass part is mostly played on one string and kind of just slides up and down between the notes. So the intro riff is pretty much the same as guitar, except it's going to be played up here and only one note. So you'll notice the difference between the two parts is there's actually an extra note added in between the A and the B. So this is going to be on the 6th fret of the E string. So it's going to kind of sound like... So the pre-chorus part is going to be pretty much the same thing as rhythm guitar, only played on one string, like so. And just remember, the last time around when they play the pre-chorus, it's going to move to G instead of E. So it's going to sound like... So then you're going to pretty much play those two A's at the very end. And then you're going to play the regular chord progression just on the E string. So it's going to sound like... So more or less the same chords as rhythm guitar is playing, whereas the rhythm guitar kind of takes its fingers off too soon. You're not going to take your fingers off at all, so you're going to kind of just slide back and forth between notes. The most notable slide is going to be the G all the way up to this D here on the 10th fret. So after that you're going to play an E on the 7th fret of the A string. And then you slide down, and then you kind of walk into that G chord from the 2nd to the 3rd fret. So it's basically going to sound like... So then the last time around, it's going to do the same, pretty much the same thing as guitar. The only difference is it's going to play the F sharp into the A, strummed with 8th notes. And there's no transition back to the E either, so it's just a straight F sharp to A. So it's going to sound like this. So that's the 2nd fret up to the 5th fret. And then you're going to basically transition back into the verse, which is pretty much the same thing as first verse. Then you play the chorus again, and then we obviously move into the solo. So on the last time around, instead of... You're just going to go straight from... You're going to transition into this 4th fret to 2nd fret motion, down a whole step to the 2nd to open. Then you play that throughout the solo, and then you're basically going to play the exact same thing as rhythm guitar, only on one string for the... So again, that's open, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 5th fret. And then the last time around, you're going to go open, 3rd, and then you're going to play out the 2nd like so. So the bass drops out entirely over the sort of clean guitar section, and then it's gonna come right back in on that E to G transition, so it's gonna sound like, and that's gonna lead us right back into that outro. So then you basically play the chorus except looped without the E and G at the end. So you just play, and then you notice at the end I did that same thing with the walk up to the 7th fret. So you're just going to repeat that basically until the very end of the song, and then on the last time around you play that 7th fret to walk into the 3rd fret on the E, and then you end it on an F sharp on the 2nd fret. Again, I would definitely advise you to go take a look at the rhythm guitar part as well when learning the bass part, because they're very similar. So anyways, that's going to be about it for this tutorial. This ended up being a lot longer of a video than I intended it to be. But if you guys do enjoy this style of video where I go over basically every guitar part in the entire song, be sure to let me know by giving it a like and commenting down below. And consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more music related content like this. And if you're interested in taking lessons with me, there will be a form linked in the description that you can sign up. But anyways, that's going to do it for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.